Good afternoon. If you are joining us, we'll start. Oh, my clock just says 12. Great. Uh, Good afternoon. It's noon, so we're going to start on time. My name is Maritza Peachin with the City of Richmond. I'm in charge of the Office of Equitable Development, and we are doing a repeat of the meeting we did last night, and we will have question and answer at the end as we did last night. This meeting is being recorded. If you are joining us with your computer, please turn off your camera. I don't believe you should have the ability to do that, but please turn off your camera. You're all automatically muted, so you can't speak, but please turn off your camera when we are presenting. You can put questions in the chat as we're talking. We will have questions at the end, as I mentioned. Just note that we are unable to type into the chat, so we cannot respond to your questions by typing. We'll take your questions at the end. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Leonard Sledge, the Director of Economic Development for the City of Richmond.
Thank you very much, Maritza. Good afternoon, everyone. We're so thankful for you participating in our community engagement meeting today to talk about the resort casino opportunity in the City of Richmond. As Maritza shared, my name is Leonard Sledge, and it's my privilege to serve as the Director of Economic Development for the City of Richmond. Joining us today, we have Suzanne Leckert and Scott Fisher, who are both with Convergence Strategy Group, who the city, through the Economic Development Authority, has hired to assist us in the evaluation and analysis of the resort casino proposals. We have several slides that we'd like to share today in terms of the market analysis and some socioeconomic impacts related to casino projects. We want to go through those as swiftly yet as thoroughly as we can, just to allow as much time as possible for questions and conversation today. And with that, really our moving forward potentially with a resort casino project for the City of Richmond, it's not just for the sake of being able to plant a flag of having a casino in the city. Every economic development project that we're pursuing, it's with our priorities in mind, being affordable housing, equitable economic development, new job creation, better job creation, poverty reduction, funding for RPS, being able to provide world-class services for citizens, and building a stronger economic base. And the next couple of slides really speak to what it takes to generate new real estate tax revenue. Just as a single benchmark in the City of Richmond, it essentially takes $84 million of assessed value to create $1 million of new general fund revenue in the city. And if we look at FY21 in terms of 1 penny on our $1.20, next slide please, 1 penny on our $1.20 real estate tax rate, that 1 penny equates to about $2.5 million of revenue. And so from a new real estate development or from a redevelopment standpoint, 1 penny on our tax roll to get that same equivalent penny, next slide please, it takes about $213 million of new assessed value. And so when we're talking about economic development, new project opportunities, whether it be a resort casino or anything else, it's really us looking at how do we generate new revenue in a smart way to provide services to address our priorities as a city. And so next slide, please. And so with the resort casino on our agenda today, we're going to talk about briefly the Virginia Casino Act, the timeline for this process, this RFP process. Scott and Suzanne are going to share about the market assessment and socioeconomic impacts. We're going to show you some information about the proposed projects and the locations, and then our Q&A. Or rather, Maritza is going to talk about the community engagement strategy and then our Q&A. With the Virginia Casino Act, the General Assembly approved this legislation in 2020. It essentially gives the City of Richmond the ability to be a host city for a full-scale casino. We all know that there are casino-like operations in the City of Richmond. We have historical horse racing through Rosie's. There are gray machines throughout the city, and of course we have the Virginia Lottery. The other 4 cities that have approved already casino projects are the cities of Bristol, Danville, Norfolk, and Portsmouth. One of the things that's very unique about Virginia that you'll hear Scott and Suzanne share a little more about is that the ability of localities like the city of Richmond to benefit directly from a revenue standpoint is really a new anomaly, or rather something that's new. The Casino Act spells out very specifically the gaming tax revenue that the city would directly receive from in a tiered structure. And also, most importantly, is that while we're going through this RFP process, our goal is to identify the best project at the best location in the city of Richmond to put forward to Richmonders for November 2nd vote. Ultimately, every Richmond voter who casts a ballot will have the absolute opportunity to say yes or no as to whether or not they'd like to have a resort casino in the city. Next slide, please. In December, the city issued a survey to get a sense of the thoughts and feelings of Richmonders as it relates to a resort casino opportunity. We use that information to help craft the request for proposals, the RFP rather. The RFP was issued in December of 2020. All proposals were due back February 22nd. We received 6 proposals, of which we'll share some more about a little later in the presentation. We have an evaluation panel, a 9-member evaluation panel that has been publicly named. 2 city council members, Councilmember Ellen Robertson, Vice President of Council, and Councilmember Andreas Addison serve on the panel. And there are 7 senior level staff members from the city of Richmond, including Mr. Lincoln Saunders, Acting Chief Administrative Officer, Ms. Sharon Ebert, Deputy CAO for Planning and Economic Development, Bob Stidell, DCAO for Operations, Maritza Peachin, as she mentioned, who leads our Office of Equitable Development, Valerie Mitchell. Valerie is the Director of the Office of Community Wealth Building, Chief Melvin Carter, Chief of Richmond Fire, and myself as the Director of Economic Development for the city. Late spring, early summer, we're going to be making our recommendation to Mayor Stoney, who will in turn make a recommendation to City Council. By then, we will have negotiated deal points, which we will share with citizens, again, with a named operator and location, and then moving on November 2nd to a voter referendum where Richmonders will be deciding ultimately whether or not there will be a resort casino in the city. Next slide, please. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Scott and Suzanne just to share information on their market assessment for the city of Richmond.
Okay, thank you very much, Leonard. And thank you everyone for having us here today. So my partner and I today are going to be talking about the initial work that we have done on behalf of the city of Richmond, the market assessment, fiscal impacts, and job creation of a resort casino, as well as the potential benefits and costs that such a development could bring to Richmond. Okay, you can slide. So a little bit about us first. Our firm is Convergent Strategy Group. We are based in New Orleans. We have 35, kind of getting a little closer to 40 years of experience in the gaming and leisure industries, working for government entities, tribal governments, as well as commercial gaming firms. We've done about 400 casino and resort related analyses worldwide, 6 continents, 33 countries, 38 US states. Okay, slide. This is just a little bit about the principles of our firm. We're Scott Fisher and I are co-founders and managing partners. Just a little bit of background. Scott is a PhD economist, been working in this industry for quite some time. I myself, my background is in urban planning. Thank you. Slide. Okay, so the task at hand. So the first, what we were brought on board to do was to provide the city of Richmond with assistance related to the selection of a resort casino operator and for choosing a site to locate a resort casino within the city. And the first thing that we did along these lines was an independent market assessment to try and understand the size and the scale and the scope that a resort casino could be in Richmond, and what would be those impacts in terms of revenues to the city. So that was our very first thing. And then from that point on, we are aiding the evaluation panel we're helping to navigate and inform the process going forward. Slide. So for the market assessment, what we did was we forecast the gaming demand and revenues that a resort casino could have. We modeled 3 different sites, and these were very general locations. Nothing, we had no specific sites in mind because this analysis was done prior to any of the bids being received. We modeled the downtown area, Northwest Richmond, as well as South Richmond. And our models considered all existing, planned, proposed gaming facilities in the regional market. Slide. Okay, this is just a map showing the regional competition. You see in blue, those are existing gaming facilities. Obviously, the only gaming facilities that exist in Virginia right now are the historic horse racing facilities, the Rosie's facilities. You see in the center here, the Richmond facility, as well as Colonial Downs. And in the purple, those are the pending casino licenses that you can see here. The Caesars Virginia project in Danville, as well as the 2 projects in the Norfolk area, one by the Pamunkey Indian Tribe and one by Rush Street Gaming. Okay, slide. Now, when we're modeling this, we don't look at, just the exact immediate area. We looked at a 2.5-hour regional market. Basically the area that is within a 2.5-hour drive time of downtown Richmond. That's what we modeled. That's the population in our model. And then we consider the competition not only within that 2.5-hour region, but the competition lying outside of it. Okay, slide. So to get a little bit into the weeds here, in terms of that 2.5-hour market, what we built was we built a drive time based gravity model. Now the inputs for these types of models are population, income levels, the competition that we just talked about, and the drive times from each and every zip code within that area to each and every competitor. We also look at behavior patterns, drawing from survey data we have across the country for spending levels and also participation in casino gaming type activities. Then we also layer in expected increases to gaming behavior with the introduction of casinos and how that differs by distance to gaming facilities. In short, what this model does is it distributes gaming visits and revenues to all the competition in the marketplace. And just a side note that these types of models, a gravity model, these have been in use for 40 years plus. They were first developed for retail developments and have been refined over the last couple of decades for casino gaming. And they're really the gold standard for looking at regional markets. Now, so once we've considered those drive-ins, the people within that 2.5-hour drive time market, we also, by nature, a resort casino has a hotel. So we looked at the capture of those visitors in the hotel and then their associated spending with that. Then we also looked at tourism. We looked at the latest tourism statistics for visitors to the Richmond region and looking at capture rates of tourists in other casinos across the country. We applied capture rates and spending from those expected tourist visits. Okay, slide. So what does this bring us all to? It brings us to projections of the gross gaming revenue potential for each of these 3 locations. The chart that you see in front of you, this breaks it down by source. In that gold color, those are the revenues projected from the regional market. Pink is the hotel incremental and blue is the tourist incremental. And it comes to a range of between $300 and $328 million in gross gaming revenues which depend upon location and competitive scenario. But you'll see there's really not much variation between a northwest site, a south site, and a downtown site. Really not much variation there. Okay, next slide. Now to dig down a little bit more into those revenues from the regional market. How much, the question is, how much comes from the city of Richmond? We're forecasting that about only 22% of the gaming revenues for this resort casino would come from residents of the city of Richmond, with the remainder of those revenues coming from outside. Slide. Okay, and with this, my partner Scott Fisher will take us through the taxes and other implications to the city of Richmond.
Thank you, Suzanne, and thank you everybody in Richmond for coming in today. So of the gaming revenues that were projected, the tax rate that effectively will go to the city is 6% for the first $200 million in gaming revenues, 7% for revenues between $200 million and $400 million, and it would be 8% if revenues exceed $400 million. In the case of $300 to $328 million in gaming revenues, that translates to $19 to $21 million per year as the city's share of gaming tax. And that is essentially the minimum that would be received if there was $300 to $328 million. The city and its bids have got some additional proposals in terms of shares of gaming revenues to be contributed to the city, and some of the bids have been presented. So there could be additional revenues that would come to the city either as lump sums or as incremental taxes. We also note that this is not inclusive of sports betting. Sports betting is treated differently by the state in terms of gaming taxes, and the city receives a very small share of that. So our projection of $300 to $328 million is not inclusive of sports betting. Various other taxes are also going to accrue in terms of rooms tax, food tax, sales taxes, and property taxes, those being the major ones. And based on revenues that we expect from those types of amenities, that would amount to approximately $10.5 million per year, including property taxes. Finally, with respect to employment, the city of Richmond has a higher unemployment rate than the MSA as a whole, than the region, and that's one of the major purposes of Richmond and the other cities that have been allocated the possibility for casino licenses was to help impoverished areas. For here, we're projecting between 1,875 and 2,035 FTE jobs, and we believe that a large share of those are going to be allocated to City of Richmond residents through agreements. And this is going to be helpful, obviously, to bring Richmond back towards full employment, which was enjoyed pre-COVID. And we know that a casino resort is a 24/7 operation with needs for both skilled and unskilled labor, which also has the potential to bring hundreds of Richmonders back into the labor force. During the course of COVID, over 3,000 people have dropped out of the labor force, and many people weren't in the labor force to begin with because hours and job skills just didn't match for them. So this would be a great opportunity. And we also note that these jobs are all the direct jobs at the casino resort itself. Through indirect spending and the spending of casino workers, there will be many more jobs that be created in the economy. Next slide. So aside from the benefits that will be created through jobs and taxes, there's other types of socioeconomic impacts that can be that would be associated with the casino resort. And largely, those are the ones that we consider to be possibly the negative externalities of having a casino. During the course of our research, as well as research that we've conducted over the last decade or two, we've talked with local officials in other cities of similar scale to Richmond, in terms of fire, police, EMS, mayors, directors of economic development, to try and get an understanding of how they've felt as a result of casinos entering their communities. We've also looked at some secondary research, the most notable being stuff that's being done by the University of Massachusetts in their Massachusetts study of economic and social impact of gambling, which is the first ever comprehensive long-term study of before, after gambling in a state. They have reams and reams of surveys and data that can be found online at their website. And it's really valuable in that it's not that it's unbiased. Most significant is many studies they do with the casino in Springfield, which has a very similar demographic base and income and poverty level to Richmond. So the data that's pertinent to them is in large ways can be used to see what might happen in the city of Richmond. What we also noticed that most host communities never get a chance to sign an MOU or a host agreement with a casino operator, as they're not the ones that are doing the licensing or selecting. It's almost always done at the statewide level. Virginia is a rare exception to this, and casinos now have an ability to have a say as to what is built. With regard also to this Sigma study, we like that one in that it's unlike many prior studies and public perceptions, which are based on data and just the norms back in the 1990s and 1980s, when there wasn't such thing as problem gambling awareness, or if there was awareness, it was completely ignored. It's come to the forefront over the last 2 decades, and it's now something that is taken seriously and has started to be seriously funded. So a lot of the social ills and maybe some movies that you really like that date back to some problems with gambling, that's largely based on stuff that's a couple of decades old. But I'm far from saying that problem gambling is no longer a problem. It still is, and it's something that needs to be addressed through funding as well as casinos being proactive. Next slide. So what can the city of Richmond expect? In short, the contribution of a casino to a city should go well beyond the tax dollars it generates and the jobs it generates. As a way of putting themselves in the best light possible, casinos today are active and visible contributors philanthropically to their host communities. They're major purveyors of goods and services in the regional economy. In so doing, it should be expected that a casino will make some promises as to a minimum percent that they're going to purchase locally, and as well as outline what kind of community partnerships they're going to have with area businesses, colleges, maybe restaurateurs, as well as being major philanthropists in basically every city that a casino is in these days in major metropolitan areas. They are amongst the largest philanthropic entities in their communities, is just generally to show themselves in the best light. Next slide. And even in smaller examples as to what you might expect from philanthropic efforts, community service hours, providing support for veterans, donation to veterans' homes, scholarships, holiday meals, any kind of holiday event being a major sponsor of, and just general community events. The goal for any casino that's entering a community, and especially in Richmond, where the city has a say, and the bidder needs to make a promise to the city as to what they're going to provide. Philanthropy should be a significant component as to why you'd want that specific casino in your community. Next slide. With regard to problem gambling, the Massachusetts study suggests that approximately 1% of the adult population is going to become a problem gambler. What they also found was that from their before and after study, by adding casinos, that percentage hasn't really changed, which is significant in that this isn't just Richmond that's adding a casino. It's already been approved in 4 other cities in Virginia, and it's going to move forward. You already have historical horse racing facilities throughout Virginia, and you have lottery as well as the casinos in neighboring states of North Carolina, Maryland, I guess going towards West Virginia. But there are opportunities already for people to be gambling. This is going to be an opportunity for additional opportunities. So if people have a problem gambling issue, hopefully through money that's going to be addressed and funded through the Virginia Lottery, there's money that's 0.8% of gaming taxes are going to be allocated towards problem gambling. Is that going to be enough? In Maryland, the total amount to approximately $5 million per year to fund problem gambling. Here, it looks like it's going to amount to approximately $2 million statewide. But again, the dollar amounts is just a part of the equation. It's also how proactive the casinos are in terms of addressing problem gambling and stopping it before it starts, and making sure people are aware of voluntary exclusion programs and things of that nature. When it comes to the crime side of things, through people that we've interviewed, as well as through the studies from the University of Massachusetts, they found that a casino development is like any other big box retail development, like a Walmart or a Target or something of that nature. As you bring in a lot of people, there's crimes of opportunity, purse snatching, whatever, and also things along the lines of traffic congestion, and slip and falls and things of that nature they have to respond to. Generally, responding to one call every 2 days. There's not a need to add police or fire. In some cases, if it's a small town, you need a ladder truck, but for Richmond, that's doubtful it's going to be an issue. And especially actually on a casino on a casino property itself, crime is rarely an issue just because of so much security and surveillance. It's kind of silly to do something if you're being watched. Next slide. Jumping back to what had been previously mentioned regarding casino licensing, states historically have been making most of the decisions regarding who gets a license and where. This slide gives you some background info on what has occurred in other parts of the U.S. Basically, the state makes the decisions, and at the local level, you're lucky if you get mitigation payments and reimbursements for infrastructure costs. There generally aren't licensing fees. You'll get the charitable contributions, you obviously get the jobs, and you'll get the economic impacts. So there's really a rare opportunity of sorts, though, because the bidder's primary goal for Richmond will be to show how they're beneficial to the city, and the city residents and city officials get to chime in on what they think is the best that's being offered for them, rather than having someone from the state tell you what's good for you. Come back to Suzanne.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. So I'm going to piggyback a little bit on that point that Scott was making just a moment ago about the position that Richmond is in, and how it's rather unique. So to kind of back up a little bit, as he mentioned before, the Virginia Gaming Act allocates what would be approximately $19 to $20 million of the gaming revenues from a resort casino in Richmond to the city of Richmond. That's what's already in the law. And this is already significantly more than other localities have received across the country. It's already significantly more. Those historically, those have ranged from anywhere from $0 to as much as $27.75 million in one or two jurisdictions. But, in the past, the number has really been a lot closer to zero, and it's really only been within the last 2 years or so that local governments have gained more power in this whole process and are receiving some direct payments to help mitigate for some of those costs, and also to fund city priorities. So right now, as things stand, the state of Virginia would allocate approximately $19 to $20 million from the resort casino to the city of Richmond. What are some other precedent? What are other cities getting? The city of Danville, they negotiated for an upfront payment of $20 million, $5 million of which was for the purchase of land, then payment of all the typical taxes, and then a share of the gaming revenues on top of the state allocated share. So, which equates to about $11 million for the city of Danville. They'll be getting approximately $31 million a year from the gaming revenues. That's what they've negotiated. The city of Norfolk, they, in their agreement with the Pamunkey tribe, they will be getting the state share of gaming revenues and leave it at that. Over in Illinois, we've seen agreements where local governments are negotiating, and and for things not just for gaming revenues, but for what living wages would be, and other details for the project. A little closer to home in New Orleans, we have a downtown casino that from 1999 up until just 2 years ago gave the city of New Orleans nothing. The city of New Orleans only received a very small stipend annually to cover police patrols, and that was it. And in a newly renegotiated agreement, the city is receiving a one-time payment of $19 million to fund infrastructure. All of this to say that Richmond is in a really unique position to negotiate a deal, but also to bring revenue to the city that it hasn't otherwise had. Next slide. Okay, so in terms of the benefits that can be expected, that influx of money to the city from its share of state gaming taxes, potential additional money from a casino in a host community agreement, job growth, jobs with decent pay, the economic impact on the city and the community, that multiplier effect and spending, job training programs, a very strong commitment to community engagement and philanthropic efforts, and an entertainment destination, another place for Richmonders and those in the region to go for entertainment purposes. We must also consider that mitigation and the social costs, and whether the funds that might be coming in can cover those. The issues of problem gaming, crime, and infrastructure, any infrastructure improvements that would be necessary to get people to and from any of the potential locations. To sum it all up, we're projecting that a resort casino in Richmond could generate between $300 and $328 million a year in gaming revenues, bringing 2.6 million to 2.8 million visitors on site per year. A facility that would have between 1,870 and 2,000 slot machines, and between 80 and 90 table games. And we see demand for anywhere between 325 and 400 on-site casino hotel rooms. And with that, Scott, do you want to pick up on the fiscal and employment?
Sure. Combining the gaming taxes that are state mandated and the local taxes in terms of sales, room, food and beverage, and property, we're estimating approximately $30 million going to the city. And finally, from a direct labor standpoint, approximately 1,875 to 2,035 FTE jobs. And as mentioned, that could swell considerably when you add the indirect jobs that we created as a result of the casino operations. And again, the larger of these could go to City of Richmond residents. Thank you.
Forgot to unmute. Okay, so in essence, what the goal here is the best project in the best location, rather than the best project in the worst location or the worst project in the best location. And we're here to help the evaluation panel get to that best project in the best location, to put the best project before the voters when it comes to November, so that Richmonders can decide ultimately if this is something that you all want for your community. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne and Scott. Next slide, please. So as we shared previously a couple of weeks ago, there are 6 proposals that we received from offerers in response to the RFP process. And the map here just shows where each of those proposers, the sites that they have identified, just to help give a greater sense of where they are in context to the entire city of Richmond. You'll note that there are two proposals in the southern end of Commerce Road, one from One Casino and Resort, the other from the Pamunkey Tribe Resort and Casino. On the northern end of Commerce, we have the Wind Creek Casino that's being proposed in the Manchester area, and Greater Scott's Addition at what's currently Movie Land and Bowtie Cinemas, Live Casino and Hotel, and then both Valley and Golden Nugget Hotel and Casino are proposing on a 61-acre tract at the intersection of the Powhite and Chippenham Parkway. Next slide, please. On the Department of Economic Development website, we have posted a lot of information for the public, including these one-page informational sheets that we have asked for each proposer to submit to us. We provided them with a template and asked them to populate it with any and everything that they'd like about their proposal. Without going into too much detail on each of them, I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of them. For example, on Valley's sheet, they refer to their $650 million world-class resort. Next slide, please. With the Golden Nugget project, again, you see a rendering there, and they tout it as a $400 million development and provide additional information and details about the number of rooms and their gaming and entertainment available. Next slide, please. One Casino and Resort, again, they talk about incremental revenue to the city, minority investment, the size, and a number of other things. Again, that's available on the website. Next slide, please. The Pamunkey Tribe Resort and Casino, again, touting it being a $350 million project, speaking to annual employee earnings, visitation, and a number of other things. Next slide, please. Live Casino and Hotel in Richmond. They're sharing their forecast in terms of the 15-year economic impact, the community and social impact of their project. It being again, just I'm sorry, the slide there is a little hard for me to read, so my apologies. But again, a host of information that's available on the website about the project. 1.9 million square feet, 2,000 slot machines in their gaming program. Next slide, please. Wind Creek, Richmond in the Manchester area. Again, they're touting it as a $540 million phased development project. Again, talking about initial investment into the city of Richmond, revenue for local businesses, and a host of other things. We have purposefully put this information, again, on the Department of Economic Development's website so that you can weigh in on. Maritza is going to share in a moment about the virtual community engagement, but I'd also like to note that we are fully aware that there are a number of organizations and individuals who are putting out surveys and soliciting input on the resort casino opportunity. I would like to state that any and everything that the city is putting out will be on this website, and all opportunities for engagement. We make it a point and a priority to communicate those to all of the city council districts via the elected council member and their liaison. Anything beyond that is not anything that the city of Richmond is pushing out. Again, everything that we're doing as it relates to our process, you can find here on the city's economic development webpage. And with that in mind, I'd like to turn it over to Maritza to talk about our community engagement.
Good afternoon, Maritza Peachin again. So the community engagement follows this 5-step process. This is on the website. First, we're sharing and listening. So that's over a month of time where we're sharing information about the projects. It's going to roll out in a couple of phases. Right now, we're in the process and precedents phase. This meeting is recorded. The meeting from last night is recorded. You can watch both online. We have this digital workshop, which I'm going to go into in a moment. Then we're going to have more virtual meetings in a couple of weeks. And then another set of digital workshops. We're also doing canvassing, going out to communities that don't have as much access to technology. After this process, we're going to report back what we heard, and we're going to have a couple meetings to talk about what we heard from people. And then the evaluation panel will kind of take all of that as we review and talk to the proposers and select a recommended location operator in terms of the deal, and that will be released in May. And then we'll have meetings, and we'll also have council meetings, because we do need to have the council pass a resolution in order to get this on the ballot. And so all of this to say that the final thing that you'll be voting on the final thing you'll be voting on November 2nd in 2021 will be a location and a site, a location and an operator coupled together that the evaluation panel has vetted and gotten community engagement on, and we'll have one site and operator that you will vote on November 2nd. The fourth phase is engaging and informing the community about the terms of the deal and continuing to share information about what it is that you would be voting on come November as a community member. So right now the engagement is this is a sheet, an example of 3 sheets that we have on our website. Again, it's right here, rva.gov/economic-development/resort-casino. If you Google Richmond Resort Casino, you will probably find it's on the front page. I looked for it in the first results. So you'll scroll down and you'll be able to see here these virtual boards. If we were doing public meetings in person, you would be writing your ideas on the boards, but we're doing it virtually. When you see it, you'll have this green banner that says click in the blank space under the questions and add a comment. So you can click once you enter your information once, you don't have to enter it multiple times. And you can add comments, you can respond to other people's comments, you can thumbs up them, thumbs down them. This is the one pager of the engagement sheet that you saw. Over here on the left is links to all of our future meetings will be shared here. They're also posted on the city's social media accounts. You can also access these boards on the Conveyo site, which works best in non-Microsoft browsers, or at least not the old Explorers. So you can see people have already been commenting, and we invite you to comment there. You can also email econdev@richmondgov.com with comments as well. So let me go back to the presentation and turn it over to Leonard.
Thank you, Maritza. So we're at a point where we've concluded the presentation, and just to remind everyone of where we are in the process, the evaluation panel, we are reviewing the proposals. We are taking to heart the input that we're receiving from the community engagement. So we encourage everyone to go onto the website to share your thoughts and comments on the panels there. I read all of the emails that come in, and we do take that information to heart. Again, from a timing standpoint, late spring, early summer, we'll be making our recommendation, all with an eye towards the November 2nd, 2021 voter referendum, where every voting Richmonder will be able to answer yes or no as to whether or not they'd like to have a resort casino project in the city. And now we'd like to turn it over and start Q&A.
So I'm going to go back and forth between the chat and people. If you are joining us on Teams, you can raise your hand, and you can, when I invite you, you can unmute yourself and ask your question aloud. So first I'm going to do one from the chat, and then I will go to people with hands raised. So this is probably for Suzanne or Scott. Clarifying on Springfield may meet data bounds, but is a very different city than Richmond. Its revitalization rate and pattern is quite different, as it is its downtown quality of life. Can you talk about why you think of Springfield as one of the comps that you looked at?
Yeah, I will. Well, it was looked at for a couple of reasons. One was I tried to look at what cities of comparable size and income strata had casinos developed over the course of the past decade. And there really was only about 7 or 8. Springfield was one of them. And in many ways, it was similar. The questioner is very correct in that as far as location goes, it is downtown in a historic district, which was something that we had looked at in our analysis. And we want to make clear here, Our study was completed the day that the bids were turned in. We looked at generic sites as opposed to specifically bid on sites. And as it turned out, there are no bids for the downtown areas. So the result is, yeah, she's absolutely correct. The bids are in places that aren't similar to what was proposed in Springfield. But we looked at Springfield. And more importantly, the state or Commonwealth of Massachusetts, their studies, there are two big casino towns in Massachusetts that have, or two towns that have casinos in Massachusetts, and one town that has a racetrack casino. Springfield being one of them, the other one being not really comparable from a population standpoint. So the research that has been done in Springfield isn't so much on what has been done to revitalize a neighborhood part, and that I've had a lengthy discussion with the Director of Economic Development there. But the research that's done by UMass is a lot more in terms of what has it done in terms of crime and population and problem gambling and things like that. So whether it's downtown or whether it's 2 miles or 5 miles from downtown shouldn't impact what the results are there. So it's a good comp. It's not a direct comp because of the location in the city, but in terms of what it means for the population, I don't think it's necessarily that different.
Thank you. Now I'm going to do a person who's raised their hand. Quentin Robbins, please unmute. Just everyone try and keep your questions as concise so that we can get to as many as possible. Go ahead, Quentin.
Hi, yeah, thank you all for letting me chat for a second. It's good to see everyone. This might be directed towards Ms. Leckert and Dr. Fisher. But just from some studies that I have read about like gambling in the United States, seemingly like 80% or more of revenues come from people making less than $50,000. It seems to me like if that's true, that's sort of like a massive redistribution of wealth away from working people. I don't have the depth of knowledge that you do about what defines problem gambling, but I think it's incumbent on the city, if we're going to make this type of commitment to a developer for a gambling project, that they have some kind of statement of impact about the strain or additional revenues in the economic impact statement on social services, not just ones that the city provides. I think even though it seems from your projections that only 22% of revenue is coming from the city, we ought to be thinking of ourselves as one commonwealth, if you will. And taking a real hard look at what impacts this has if the goal is to fund public services. What are the downsides on public services that this project will create?
Suzanne, I'll let you take that. Start.
So there's quite a bit to unpack there. So we're going to try and take one thing at a time. So first off, your comment about 80% of revenues coming from those earning less than $50,000 a year. I haven't seen that data. We've seen, we are continually, reviewing surveys and data and research on the topics. And more typically, a typical casino gamer is a woman in her middle ages and middle to upper income. Certainly there are folks that visit casinos and gamble that shouldn't be, and that's what problem gaming initiatives are there to help with. But I think you might be looking at some incorrect data on that. And trying to think of what your other questions. Scott,
yeah, can I
you jump
clarify
in?
a little bit, if you don't mind? So I'm not talking about like what the actual average person looks like. I'm talking about like where the revenues come from.
Yes, exactly.
This is stuff that's been cited, that I've seen cited like pretty profusely.
There's a lot out there that is dated, that is incorrect.
Do you have resources for the general public about where the share of income comes from for casino projects? And
Yes.
are there studies about the impacts on social services that casinos have?
Absolutely. So our study that will be published in the next, I guess, week or two, we go into depth on those issues, and with all of our sources in there. But also at the same time, you can go to the website, the Sigma website that University of Massachusetts has up there, and there are just volumes and volumes of research and data on there of just who casino gamblers are, what their patterns are. That there's so much to unpack in there, and it's very, very thoroughly done. And as Scott had mentioned earlier, this study commenced before casinos opened in Massachusetts, so they have a really, really good baseline to follow what the impacts have been. And by and large, the negative impacts that were feared have not been realized as yet. And so I strongly suggest you go to their website and look at some of their research.
Yeah. In addition to that, I mean, this is so much. The stuff that's in here.
So we have a lot of other people who have questions.
Yeah, just the last part of my question. So will there be a specific impact statement done for social services on the state of Virginia and in the city?
Yeah. So Quentin, in terms of the Commonwealth of Virginia, I can't answer for what the Commonwealth of Virginia will do. In terms of impact statement, it's something that we can certainly have a conversation about. But what I do know absolutely is, again, the opportunity that's in front of Richmonders to say yes or no to. We are mindful of issues and concerns that individuals have, and as a part of the conversation and dialogue that we're having broadly, it's so that we can hear the issues and concerns, but also discuss ways that we mitigate the impacts of those. From a problem gaming standpoint, the Virginia Casino Act speaks to a percentage of revenue from across the state to fund programs as it relates to problem gambling, problem gaming. It's our desire and hope to see that anyone proposing in the city of Richmond proposes options and alternatives to go beyond that. And I see your note. I know you're not just talking about problem gaming, but the social impacts, and there are social impacts that go along with problem gaming as well. And so glad to continue the conversation and dialogue about it. But for now, we'll move on to some of the other questions.
A question from the chat from Juan is, will the casinos be built, run with union labor? Will an operator's willingness to operate union be a consideration in choosing an operator?
That's a good question. And again, just to make sure I've heard correctly, will union labor be a part of any consideration? It will be up to, so each proposer is proposing. The city of Richmond, in terms of again, how we move forward with our priorities and addressing our priorities as a city, without getting too much into the weeds or details in any of the proposals. I'll speak to the last economic development project that was approved by our city council. And that particular project being the sale and redevelopment of the public safety building, we specifically called out a minimum number of hours for union personnel as it relates to the construction of the project. It's a question I'm sure that will be posed at an appropriate point with the offerers, the operators, but again, no hard and fast decisions have been made on that as of yet.
Next, I guess the hand went down. I saw Mary Wickham had her hand up, but now it is gone. But she put a question in the chat, so I'll read that out loud.
No, I've got my hand back. I put the question in the chat. I'm interested in Well, I'm very interested in the external social costs of the of the casino projects. But on the gaming issue, I'm curious how you define problem gaming and what percentage of casino profits are generated from problem gamblers.
The second half of that question, I'm not sure I have an answer to. I'm just pulled up from the American Psychiatric Association what their definition is. And that's preoccupation with gambling, unable to cut back or control, irritable or restless when attempting to cut down, risks money to reach greater excitement, gamble to escape problems, chases losses, lies to their family, risks losing their job or relationships, and relies on others for financial needs. And those are things that you expect, obvious if you've got a problem. And they can manifest in additional things beyond that, which is things like embezzlement. As far as what percentage of casino profits are generated by problem gamblers, I'm not sure how you'd ever find data on that, because for people who identify and do something about it in terms of putting themselves on a self exclusion program, the answer should be 0. The problem is that there's a lot of people that do not do that, and until a casino can identify them and tell them that they should be cut off, there'd be no way to quantify that. So I'm not sure how we'd give you an answer.
To do a project like this without saying, are we going to generate these revenues? And we know that Richmond has a history of emphasizing the plus side and de-emphasizing the negative side of projects. But I think it's irresponsible to say we're going to generate this revenue for the city of Richmond that's going to benefit our city without saying, are we making this money on the backs of people who have, who are not just party goers who might pop in every now and then, but people who are in fact, addicted to gambling. So I think it's a very important thing for you to be able to tell us.
Yeah, so and I appreciate that. The answer that I can give is the percentage of people that are, but not the dollar amount that equates to, because that's the number I don't know. What we do know is that approximately 1% of adults are problem gamblers, but whether they have a different spending pattern than others, I'm not sure whether there's research as to how that's tracked. So I apologize that that's not something that I can answer.
Thank you, Scott. I have Quentin asked me to post in the chat. I am totally unable. I'm restricted from city MS Teams procedures to write anything in a chat box. So I cannot link to anything, but if you go to the Sigma Reports website, there is a whole study that they have, social and economic impacts of Plain Ridge Park Casino. There's like many reports that have lots of social impacts outlined on their website.
Yeah. And let me, Mary, I appreciate the question that you've raised. In terms of upside versus downside from a cost to social impact standpoint, again, we're mindful of the impact of any economic development project or any type of project in the city of Richmond. The one thing for sure is that any new revenue that's generated as a result of the project, City Council has the ability to appropriate those revenues. With funding from the Virginia Lottery, we don't have that opportunity. With funding as a result of gray machines, the proliferation of gray machines in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we do not have that opportunity. There is a small amount of funding of new revenue that's generated as a result of the Rosie's facility in the city of Richmond. But the reality is because of the way the legislation has been written, a portion of that revenue goes to New Kent County as the host to horse racing in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so with an opportunity like this, I believe it does give both Richmond, again, the opportunity to realize the upside of activity that's already happening in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and also giving Richmond, again, the opportunity to appropriate revenues to help solve for social impact, economic impact related to it, but also a host of other things that aren't related to casino gaming. So thank you.
Okay. Another question from the chat. I'm not sure if this is a question for any of you, but is there any insight on the locations and their accessibility for the disabled? Or is anyone overseeing that? I guess I interpret that as being, are disabled people going to be able to access the casinos?
So that's a great question. I'm not a building and codes compliance specialist, but my gut feel, Robbie, is that any facility constructed in the city of Richmond will have to be ADA accessible.
If you have a question and you want to voice it aloud, raise your hand and I will call on you. Someone wrote, yes, thank you. Denise wrote, I want to voice concerns about some of the locations. Commerce Street is not somewhere I would want my family and friends late at night. Is safety being taken into account? So can you talk about safety and security plans?
Safety and security is very important in any proposed project in the city. And we are, as a part of our evaluation process, we are asking about security procedures, security protocols, and we're taking that into account in terms of our assessment. We're also looking at data that exists in the city of Richmond already for in close proximity to Rosie's, just to understand from a public safety standpoint, what impact having a facility that offers historic horse racing, what impact has it had on calls? And so, yes, we are taking that into consideration.
I have a question from Jad Khalil. I'm a reporter with WVTF and Virginia Public Radio. I have a question about Convergent Strategy Group. Can you describe the relationship between the companies that could be bidding on the proposals and your company? Are any of them current clients of yours, or have they been recently?
I'll go ahead and take that. None of the bidders are current clients of our firm, and I'm looking at the list right now, and no, I mean, we have worked with one or two of these bidders many years ago, but we don't have any current contracts or any relationships with any of the bidders.
Or financial stake in their companies either.
Right. We don't invest in casino companies. Hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you. I'm scrolling through the questions from before and making sure I didn't miss anything. I think I covered Julie's questions, but covered that with socio stuff. I don't have any other questions in the chat, so I'm going to give a wrap up, and if people are ask another one, we'll go ahead. So
Moritz, I do see one hand up. I'm sorry.
Not sure if New Kent County is comparable to an urban area like Richmond. Do you have any urban casino statistics? Yeah. That was in reference to how the funding is structured for the historic horse-based race betting, right?
That's correct. Again, I was just speaking of New Kent in terms of individuals who go to Rosie's and spend in Rosie's to play the historic horse racing machines. The city of Richmond does not receive the benefit of all of the local tax. It's split with New Kent County. That was the only reason for mentioning New Kent County. All to say that as a result of revenue being generated in the city does not get the full benefit of that.
With the crime statistics, she was talking about crime statistics, Erica was, that we're looking at the ones related to the,
yes,
the facility in Richmond.
Yes, purely the facility in the city of Richmond on Midlothian.
We're not looking at New Kent crime statistics.
No.
Okay.
Can I add to that? In our report, in our appendix to our report, we have, and if you can pull up also the Ohio Gaming Commission In Ohio, there's several cities, the largest cities in Ohio all have casinos that were developed over the course of the last decade. And they post annual crime statistics from every type of crime that you can possibly imagine. For each city, how many each types of crimes the police have responded to at the casino. So that's an example that shows examples of how frequent different types of crimes are related to urban casinos.
Thank you. Great. Lyndon G, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you. I have just a question. I might have a few questions, but first about the evaluation process. Can you tell me or tell us what exactly that's going to look like? Who's a part of it, and what conclusions are they going to come to based on what this process is going to come?
Thank you, Lyndon. In my comments earlier, I did share that there is a 9-member evaluation panel. That 9-member panel consists of 2 city council members, Vice President Ellen Robertson and Councilman Andreas Addison, and also 7 senior members of the city's leadership and the administration, myself as the Director of Economic Development, Acting Chief Administrative Officer Lincoln Saunders, DCAO Sharon Ebert, who's responsible for planning and economic development, DCAO Bob Steidel, who's responsible for operations, Maritza as the Director for Equitable Development, also Valerie Mitchell as the Director of the Office of Community Wealth Building, and Chief Melvin Carter, Richmond Fire Department. I believe that's everyone. We've hired Convergent Strategy Group to leverage their experience and expertise in terms of casino gaming. I think it's advantageous that they have worked both for localities and for casino gaming operators, just to help us understand what we don't know, and to help make sure that we're evaluating the opportunities and putting the best one forward for Richmond. We're going through a process where we are evaluating those proposals. There's information that, again, that we've asked the offerers, the proposal writers, the companies themselves to share any information that they feel appropriate to share at this point. That information is posted online. We're going to be going through this process, taking into account also the input, what we're hearing through forums like this, also what people are sharing using the online platform Conveyo. There's a lot of comments that are there already. People are emailing comments, and we will make a recommendation to Mayor Stoney in terms of the preferred operator and site. Mayor Stoney will in turn make a recommendation to City Council in the form of ordinances and resolutions. City Council's responsibility is to consider that and to ultimately decide whether or not they will petition the court for there to be a voter referendum. And then on November the 2nd, with the voter referendum, all voting Richmonders will be able to answer yes or no as to whether or not they would like to have a casino in the city. We are at a point where in this process, the Virginia General Assembly has put Richmond in a position where we have this opportunity to consider. And I feel like it's our responsibility to put forward, again, the best opportunity for Richmonders to say yes or no to. And whatever the outcome of the vote is, that's what the outcome of the vote is.
Awesome. Quick follow-up about the coming to council with the idea. You said earlier that the sites have been identified where the best possible locations will be, but as far as picking an operator, that could change. Can you tell me a little bit about that process? Is that going to happen in the evaluation as well?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to answer this question, Lyndon, and then we're going to go on to someone else who has a question, if that's okay. So, yeah, sure. With regard to the RFP process, we did not specify any preferred sites. We didn't say not this site. We didn't say yes this site. In our RFP process, we left it up to each interested party to bring a piece of property to the table for consideration. And we are evaluating their proposals their individual proposals based on those and what their program is, all of the intricacies, the financial projections and analysis and such. And so to one of the last slides that was shared by Suzanne and Scott, it's about us going through this process again to identify optimally the best project at the best location in the city, that the nexus of that combination. And I hope that answers your question. And so it's not like we are choosing an operator and saying build it here. We're taking the operator and their site location in tow.
Awesome. Thank you.
Pleasure. You're on mute, Maritza.
Thank you. This is probably for Suzanne and Scott. I saw, this is from Julian. I saw a projection of 3 million visitors per year. What are these projections based on?
So these projections were based upon our assessment of the market that we went over in the first part of the presentation, that regional market of those that live within about a 2.5-hour drive of Richmond, and then also those the volume of tourism that the Richmond region gets every year.
Thank you. Julie, you can unmute and ask your question. Julie, you're muted, so maybe you'll come.
While we're waiting for Julie to chime in, I think it would be helpful for everyone on the call to also understand that, we've asked Scott and Suzanne to model what the forecast, what's reasonable in terms of the city of Richmond from a gaming standpoint, and the proposers have projections as well. And so, we're leveraging their expertise to help us understand what's reasonable in terms of projections. And the reason that I shared that to the question that was just asked in the chat, it's in the presentation provided by Scott and Suzanne. I believe it was 2.6 to 2.8 million. Someone may see one of the information sheets and see figures that are totally different. And so I just want to share that with everyone. They have done their models and analysis, and then Scott and Suzanne, on behalf of the city of Richmond, have done a model and an analysis as well.
Julie, are you still there? Okay, well, I don't see new questions coming in, and remember that econdev@richmondgov.com is an email you can send emails to. Remember that we have the city's website where you can post your comments on those sheets, and we will be reading them, and we will be reporting back what we heard, and that will come in early April. So thank you so much for all of your time today, and please share this information with the rest of your community so we can get as many Richmonders involved as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.